Alright, well, while I'm still waiting patiently for Peter Holland's cover of This Wandering Day, the seventh and penultimate episode of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Season 1 has dropped on Amazon Prime Video, and so now I gotta talk about it with all of the spoilers, so that is a spoiler warning. If you have not yet watched this second to last episode of the season titled The Eye, and you're planning on it, you should probably stop the video at this point, because I will be talking about most of the things that happen in this episode. If you have watched it or you don't care, I invite you to stick around. Alright, you've been warned. Let's dive into this episode of this show that I love. So I'm gonna start off with the Harfoots here, because really as far as this episode goes, it's the simplest part. The Harfoots, it looks like they've made it to their destination, with the stranger who I'm still pretty sure is Gandalf. Only thing is, he's causing problems. He can't really control his magic, we've seen that a couple of times now. His magic seems to be doing more harm than good at first anyway. Like he's trying to heal that tree, but that branch ends up falling and almost hurting some of the kids. So the Harfoots are finally like, alright, you're out of here. Good luck on your journey, but yeah, you can't be with us anymore. You're too much of a liability. So they send him on his way. Unfortunately, this stranger does have a couple of evil-looking dudes on his tail. I guess they're looking for him for some reason or another. And so they come across the Harfoots, and I was like, oh, you are all gonna die. I'm so sorry. These dudes are gonna murder you. To be fair, they don't go that far, but they do pretty much set their whole way of life ablaze. Yeah, that sucks for them. So they're like, alright, we need this stranger back. And so a few of them set off to get him. Nori, Poppy, Marigold, Sadok. If they're not going to bring him back, they're at least going to warn him about these evil-looking dudes. I am really curious about them. Like, what are they? I hope we get answers in next week's finale. I did like Largo's speech, too, where he's like, we're Harfoots. Our hearts are bigger than our feet. There's one thing we do better than any creature in Middle-earth, and that is sticking true to each other. I was like, yeah, that's good. Props to him. Alright, jumping over from that feel-good fest to the bitter aroma of defeat. After Waldreg used the key and turned the Southlands into Evil Land, now we're licking our wounds. A lot of people are dead now. Galadriel's kind of finding her way. She comes across Theo. There's actually a quote she says here. I had to write this down because I liked it so much. She says, what cannot be known hollows the mind. Fill it not with guesswork. It might seem trivial, but I really love that line. Because it's true, when we have that fear of the unknown, we tend to fill it with the worst things that could possibly come into our heads. And that's really not healthy. We shouldn't do that. So that quote just really reminded me of that. It was great. Of course, one thing that I have to touch on here is Queen Muriel's misfortune. She's saving a couple of citizens from the rubble, but then she gets some hot ash and smoke in her eyes. Now she's blind. Yeah, straight up, the Queen Regent of Numenor has been blinded. I want to say that's really cool, but that would make me kind of sound like a dick. But you know what I'm trying to say? I like that twist. I just find it really interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that does for her character, for her story arc, in the overall series. Yeah, for the rest of the show, however long it lasts, Queen Muriel is going to be blind. We see her later wearing a blindfold like Bird Box and shit, and I was like, damn, that is permanent damage right there. There's her constant reminder. I just thought the Queen being blinded was a really interesting way to go. I want to give props to that. However, one thing I won't give props to is the fact that Elendil's like, where is my son? Yeah, apparently Isildur's gone missing. So it's believed that Isildur is dead, which, I mean, come on. We know he's not dead. Hello? Like the T-800 before him, he'll be back. And we all know this, so alright. Why the writers decided to do that, I have no idea. And actually, another thing that had me scratching my head a little bit is that later scene where Galadriel's talking with Theo, and Theo's like, have you lost anyone? And I was like, yeah, her brother, and she mentions her brother Finrod. But then she mentions apparently she had a husband at one point. I was like, huh? Granted, I don't know if this is a retcon or not, since again, I haven't read the books, for which apparently I should be burned alive. But yeah, she mentions having had a husband, and not only that, but apparently it was Celeborn, who, I know that name, yeah, he was in the Lord of the Rings movies. He was with Galadriel in Lothlorien when the Fellowship went there. Which, alright, leads me to believe, since Galadriel mentioned that Celeborn went missing, I guess she never saw his actual dead body, he'll probably come back one day too. Galadriel and Celeborn will probably be reunited at some point in the series, so we have that to look forward to. So after all the dust has settled, the Numenorians are like, alright, yeah, that thoroughly sucked. We're gonna head home. But the Queen does make a vow. She's like, alright, we will regroup and we will come back stronger than ever before. I was like, alright, yeah. I hope they fulfill that promise in however many seasons or episodes time. I really do. But for now, I guess for them, it's back to the coolest place in the entire series. Safe travels. And then finally there's that awesome scene with Adar and the orcs where they're like, "Hail the Lord of the Southlands," and he's like, "No, that's the name of a place that no longer exists." And Waldreg's like, "Well then what shall we call it?" And then it's that shot of the landscape. We see Mount Doom in the far background, and it's like the Southlands, but then it changes, and it says Mordor. I was like, cool. Yeah, I thought that was awesome. It's official now. In the series, this is no longer the Southlands. This is Mordor, the realm of evil we all know. Oh man. I do gotta say though that the most interesting story arc in this episode was with Elrond and Durin and the dwarves in Khazad-dûm. Prince Durin IV is trying to convince his father to utilize the Mithril to help Elrond to save the elves. But man, that king, God, that dude is a dick. He's a douchebag. He's like, "No, we will never help the elves, cause the dwarves' way of life is sacred. It's just the best thing ever." I'm starting to really hate that dude. But apparently Mithril has healing powers? I was like, since when? Since when can Mithril do that? I don't know, and I'm afraid to ask, but someone answer that for me. Is it from the official lore, or is it just made up for the show? You know what, I'll look it up myself. And apparently the dwarves have a whole cavern full of the stuff. You remember that story that Elrond told a couple episodes ago? With that high elf and the Balrog in the tree? I'm guessing this is where that battle happened. More on that in a minute. Because when the king discovers that Prince Durin and Elrond found this cavern, Elrond is banished. Should have seen that coming. Although I guess it's good he did hold on to a little bit of Mithril, so there might be some hope for the elves yet. Meanwhile, Prince Durin and his father, oh man. This scene, man, the argument they get into, I was like, dude. Prince Durin spitting some straight facts, being like, "No, you're the one who's betraying your own kind." It reminded me of the scene in Black Panther where he was like, "All of you are wrong!" You know, he's defying his father, except unfortunately in this case, the father is not so understanding. Now instead he pretty much disowns him or something, I guess. He takes part of the prince's armor and just throws it on the ground. He's like, "Don't pick it up. It's not yours anymore." And I was like, oh shit. So what, is Prince Durin no longer a prince? Is he now just Durin IV? Yeah, I told you, that king, he's a douche. Poor Durin IV, man. I guess for now, he's the dwarf formerly known as Prince. That was a good one. But then, the final twist, after the king seals up that big cavern, the camera goes down there and we see, oh, they have a Balrog. And after some thinking, I was like, this is probably not just any Balrog. Most likely, this is the Balrog of Morgoth from that story that Elrond told a couple episodes ago. The one that had that battle with the High Elf that caused Mithril to come into existence in the first place. I guess the epilogue of that story is that the dwarves tamed the Balrog somehow, and now they're keeping it with them in their realm. Yeah, holy shit, okay, wait a minute. I just thought of this. Khazad-dûm will later become Moria, right? What if this is the same Balrog of Morgoth that we see in Fellowship of the Ring? You know, the one that Gandalf later tells that he will not pass? Holy shit. Alright, that's pretty fucking awesome. My question now is, are we gonna see this Balrog at any other point in the series? Like, is it gonna come into play later on? Maybe even in next week's finale? I mean, we'll probably see it again at some point. You don't just show it once and then never touch on it again. You don't do that. So we'll see it again, I just don't know if it'll be next week or in a later season. But I guess we'll find out. So in the end, this penultimate episode of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Season 1 was pretty fucking cool. We're gearing up for the finale. I don't know what's gonna happen. It's probably gonna be long. Man, these episodes have been like 70 minutes. This show is pretty dense, but I mean, it's Lord of the Rings. I wouldn't have it any other way. Besides, it gives me a lot of cool shit to talk about. So, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power Season 1, Episode 7, The Eye. Have you watched it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And what are your theories for next week's season finale? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!